idea of Parkour came naturally after many discussions amongst our team members. We wanted something fresh and young that can represent the spirit of freedom. And Parkour is a sport for the youth, one that demands agility, intelligence, and power. And somehow we all agree that the practice of moving naturally from one point to another, using the obstacles along the way to your advantage, is a way of life. We can choose to look at any situation in life believing that there's no obstacle in life that cannot be overcome. Those are good words. I can get behind words like that, right? That is an excellent idea, a concept for a jump cue, okay? If that's your guiding principle in making the Parkour Jump Cue, that's solid, okay? And little did I know, I've been a fan of Parkour my entire life. I remember seeing Casino Royale with Daniel Craig, and that first fight, or chase scene is what it was, mostly, when Bond was chasing down that guy, and he was using Parkour to escape Bond. I thought it was so rad. But little did I know, I mean, Parkour is in some of my most favorite movies. My favorite Kung Fu movie of all time, Executioners from Shaolin, where Hong Wing Ding, the son of Hong Si Quan, uses a combination of tiger style, his father's tiger style, and his mother's crane style to defeat the evil Pai Mei. That is some phenomenal stuff, right? There's the Parkour right there, okay? I love that, right? So an excellent concept for a jump cue. However, is it good? Does it actually do the job? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today with you. We're going to be talking about, well, the elephant in the room, the looks. We're going to talk about specs, and then we're going to talk about performance. And then lastly, I'm going to basically start at the bottom and work my way up the cue to the very end, to the tip, okay? And, you know, I've found that Rhino is very receptive to constructive criticism because they have a continuous improvement drive. I've called them mad scientists in the past. They are mad scientists. Take a look at their website and all the things that they've added. They're busy bees. They are busy bees. So in that section, I'm going to be picking apart whatever I can. And hopefully they can use that information. They can give themselves a pat on the back because they did some good stuff. And they can also sit down at their boardroom table and maybe have some conversations on where they want to go next. Okay? So there's that and a whole lot more. So let's do this. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and share this video if you find at the end of it that you value what I did here, okay? That helps with YouTube pumping it out to everybody. YouTube requires me to say this. Yes, Rhino Billiards sent this jump cue to me for free. Is this video sponsored? No, it's not sponsored because I'm free to say whatever I want to say. And if Rhino gets offended by anything I say, just understand that why I say it is only to be constructive and to help that company grow because I enjoy their attitude and I enjoy their continuous improvement drive. I want to go first and foremost to the website because I want to show you a few things. Let's attack the specs right off the hop here, okay? So if we were to go to the website and you negotiate to, and it's rhino/billiards.com, go to the cues section, okay? In the cues section, take a look at all of the product line that Rhino has thrown out there. You know, when I first got to Rhino, I heard about them and I first did those reviews. You know, they had the Comet Breaker, they had the Nebula, they had the Eclipse, and then they had some one pieces. But take a look at all the options they've got for you. They've been busy, okay? Skip to the very bottom, jump cue section, and the Parkour Jump Cue, that's where we want to go. And they did have a sale going. It was $300, and now it's up to $329 again. That was the regular price, okay? It is in stock. I want to skip down to the specifications section. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet. We'll concentrate on the jump shaft section here, okay? So the length is 30 inches. That seems to be what Rhino's sticking with, right? All their shafts are 30 inches. A regular shaft, a generally accepted regular shaft length is 29 inches, but they're sticking with the 30 inches. Weight, 3.2 ounces. The tip and ferrule, finest Bakelite material. So it's Bakelite and it's just one piece, okay? I'll show you a picture in a little bit when I talk about the tip, okay? Tip size, 13.9 millimeter. That's huge. That's pretty much standard these days for jump cues. You want a bigger tip. Gives you a greater margin of error. You do not want unintended side spin. It comes down to your fundamentals. That's a whole other topic. But they did the right thing by having a tip size at 13.9 millimeters. And then of course, it's a carbon fiber shaft. Head to the butt. Of course, two pieces, the length of the first piece. So this is the piece that threads into the shaft, and also the piece that you will use, obviously it's connected to your shaft, where you take off that back piece for those close-in jump shots, right? 13 inches. The second piece that you take off is 5.12 inches. The weight of the first piece is 5.5 ounces. The second piece, 3.5 ounces. The joint is a 3/8 by 8 mini. They call it the mini 3/8 by 8, and it's stainless steel. So it's a shorter 3/8 by 8, so it doesn't take as long to unscrew it, okay? We'll talk more about that later. And of course, the material is composite. Important to understand that, okay? Rhino cues, they don't use wood. All their butts are composite. Can you tell the difference in the hit? There are some cue makers in this world that will say, of course you can tell the difference. I've been playing this game for a very, very long time. I can't tell the difference, okay? So I don't care if it's composite. If the fact that it's composite is aiding in Rhino's ability to do the overlay work that they're doing, and I would put Rhino Billiards in the elite category of overlay work. They do a phenomenal job in their designs, and it is flawless. The fact that it's composite is aiding them, never go away from composite, Rhino, okay? Because you guys are knocking it out of the park, all right? But I digress. If you drop it, well, we'll talk later about that. Those are the specs. I can confirm the specs, okay? But what about the looks, okay? Let's talk about the looks, because quite frankly, it's the elephant in the room. So let's head to the table and let's take a look at the cue, okay? So, like I promised, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room, and that is the look of this jump cue. Bold. It is bold. I've taken this cue out to league. Yes, I am out of retirement. I've been drug out of retirement for the first time in a while, and I'm playing league again, and it catches people's eyes, okay? I don't know how many people have walked across, and you know how you always have your cues displayed with your entire team. People see it and they stop, what is that? And they pick it up. They can't help but look at it, and they look at it closely. Anyways, it's eye-catching. Now, remember I said on the site that it says the product brightness varies because of lighting source, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you have this cue in your hand, it's not as bright as what it is on the website. And that's because obviously they lit it up. They try to make it as visible as possible for people that are visiting their website, right? When you actually have it in your hand, yes, it's colorful because it has multicolors, right? It's got purple, brown, blue, yellow, another type of brown, green, okay? And then they have black pinstriping in between, separating those colors. And what's nice, something that I'm a fan of, it's got the wood look, the wood grain look in each color. You can see it, okay? Normally, jump cues are very reserved, right? They'll have their brand name, and they might have the company name. They usually do have the company name, but then it'll be black with maybe just a very simple decal, right? But you know the inspiration that Rhino took. They wanted to infuse this with the spirit of Parkour to overcome anything with unity, right? So they've included all these colors. That's the message behind this cue, okay? So now that you understand that, you could probably understand why they went with this color scheme, right? It's grown on me, okay? I can tell you this is their second jumper. This came out slightly after their Voyager jumper, right? I was saying that there was a huge hole in their product line, right? They didn't have a jump cue. Well, they came out with a jump cue, and it was the Voyager, which is the stars and stripes, right? If you haven't seen that, head over to their website. I'll show you a picture here. No offense to my American brothers and sisters. I said that on Facebook, but like this is not going to appeal to a lot of people, right? Ironically enough, the Voyager series has expanded, and they have a Canadian version and a German version, right? I am of German heritage, and I was born and raised in Canada, right? And I wouldn't buy those either. I don't like my pool cues to have themed. I don't want them to be themed, and I don't like them being busy. I like wood grain looks. I like simplistic. And those cues aren't those things, right? So when they came out with the Parkour, I was like, oh, wow, okay. But then I saw the colors, and I was like, why did they make that decision? But having it in my hand, right, and understanding the message behind it, I dig it now. I really like, and you know what I like? When I go out, people can't help, like I said, stop and ask, what is that, right? So you've definitely caught the attention, Rhino Billiards, of people. But let's talk about the performance, okay? The performance of this cue is phenomenal, right? If I make a comparison, this is my old jumper. This is Cue Joe Customs. My friend Darcy made this for me about 15 years. I must have had this for 10, 15 years now. It's different from the Rhino because it has G10. It's a G10 ferrule that is basically just shaped, right? It's a one piece. Similar to the Bakelite in that it's a one piece ferrule tip, right? This is a one piece G10, right? Much longer. It jumps differently, okay? G10 is a material that comes in a little bit harder than Bakelite and phenolic, okay? If you can imagine that. So the theory behind it is because it's harder, it's gonna get you up and over, and it does. However, I believe that because of the hardness, you are losing controllability on the back end after you've made your contact. For me, it was a crapshoot. I didn't know where my cue ball was going. I was happy to make the jump shot, but me controlling the cue ball after the contact, me even getting a little bit of backspin or just stopping it, I had a hard time. I've always had a hard time. The jump shot has never been a huge weapon in my arsenal. I know how to jump, but if I could kick out and play safe or kick out and even attempt a shot, that's what I'm doing most of the time. I've made jump shots, lots of jump shots, but I've always viewed it as a low percentage shot. That puts me in the wrong category, okay? Because what's happened here over the last little while, because of equipment that has improved, it has become a weapon. It has become a portion of your game that you should work on, okay? You're not gonna use it all the time, but if the situation arises and you've got that weapon in your bag, why not use it, right? So professionals, I mean, if you're not locking them up tight, I'm not saying I've ever played a professional, but I played very, very high Fargo rated players. If you're not locking them up tight, they're jumping. It's a weapon. If it's not within, I would say, a ball's width, they can get out. They can get up and over, right? So it's a weapon. It is a weapon. So why not have the right equipment, okay? So performance-wise, it does the trick, okay? What have I found? If I'm within a foot and a half, I'm taking the bottom piece off, like so, right? And it does an excellent, excellent job, okay, of getting up and over. I'm not much of a dart shooter, but it does the dart shot very, very well. on a side note, I've never understood why pool players ended up calling that stroke a dart stroke. I mean, when we play darts, it's the whole arm, right? Do you see how my wrist, my fingers, my elbow, even my shoulder, maybe to a certain degree, is moving? A dart stroke, no. You're locking your shoulder, you're locking your elbow, right? And it's literally this, all in the wrist, right? It would be more aptly called the dip stroke. But they've gone with dart stroke and everybody agrees with that now, so we call it the dart stroke. I digress, okay? For the long shots, you do not have to elevate this cue more than 30, 35 degrees, right? So if you're way far away, right, and you're going still at 45, you're doing it wrong. This Bakelite tip is so effective. Trust me, just try 30 degrees and give it a good center ball. You're going through the center of that cue ball. You'll get up and over. That's probably the biggest thing for me, is the long distance shots with this cue. Performs wonderfully. And I mean, there's a certain amount of physics to a long distance jump shot, right? We're giving up a lot of control because of the distance, right? That goes for any aspect of pool, right? If we're just doing a long distance shot with our regular playing cue and we're throwing English on, we're giving up that, that certainty in our shot. And that's when we have to trust our stroke, right? This is no different, right? A long distance jump shot, right? For me, all I care about now is, compared to my old jump cue, can I at least stop that cue ball, right? Can I at least predict where the cue ball, after the contact, where it ends up? That's what I want, right? If I can predict that, then I can keep going on. That's miles ahead of what this was, because it was a crapshoot. With the Rhino Parkour Jump Cue, I can get backspin on the short range, right? I couldn't with this, right? At best, for me to get backspin, I would have to land almost on a quarter of that ball, and then just the physics would kick my cue ball back, right? But now I'm getting backspin easy on the close range jump shots. And on the long range, I'm able to stop that cue ball, right? I'm able to, you know, if I raise my tip on that cue ball and play a little bit more higher on my center ball hit, you know, I can get that cue ball to jump, contact, make the ball, and roll forward, right? So it does the job, right? Excellent, excellent jump cue. Just a few additional items on performance in this cue. I've already talked about when you're back and you're doing the longer range, you don't have to elevate so much. I find with this cue personally that the sidearm, a sidearm jump is more effective for me. This is a fundamentals thing for me, but I just wanted to get that out there for you also. Probably because Rhino Billiards has the longer shaft, their balance point is slightly forward, right? There's their balance point. So it's like 1.5 inches past their joint, right? So if you're a dart shot player, you know, you usually want to find the balance point and back it up 1.5 inches, 2 inches. It ends up being sort of right, you know, your fingers right at the joint there, like so. So important for you to know, right? We're all different heights, so you're going to have to adjust your angle, but it does the trick, dart wise, short, regular wise, long wise.
if a person were so inclined to take that tip off of there,
Yeah,
and I sent that picture to you,
you did, yeah.
and you've seen how it goes down in there.
Yeah.
What would be involved in that? Would I have to replace the ferrule, or would you do something different?
Well, there's no ferrule on here.
Yeah.
So basically, this Bakelite tip is cut like a tenon, and it goes inside of the shaft. That's what the diagram shows me. So if somebody wants me to replace a tip on this, I'm very simply gonna flatten it off and put a tip right on top. Bakelite is not really a leather. It's not like you're gluing a tip onto a tip. So that's all I would do. Same as a one-piece ferrule. I would just flatten it off, put a tip right on top. And I think that might actually improve the jumpability of this. I hit a few test jumps, and the feel of that Bakelite was just a little bit dead feeling to me. So I would absolutely put a different jump brake tip on and see if it improves it. For the cost of this cue, it jumps so well. So well. Can we make it better? Maybe. And if we could do a better job for really a nominal amount of money, I think that's an area I'd like to experiment with.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really impressed with these Rhino products so far. I don't like the design of this guy. It looks like a color wheel that you could pick what you like, but the detail is pretty fantastic. They're really getting wood grain.
And what are your thoughts on that? Like I'm going to bring it up in the video about that pin on the bottom, not being a quick release. To me, it's not a deal breaker.
Big deal. This is great. You know, I personally jump with a Q-Tech Repel, which is a really, really well jumping cue, but I absolutely hate the pin that they use. For me, a big pin going into a threaded insert is much stronger, longer lasting. I don't hate this at all.
And you're never going to be on a clock.
You're never going to be on a clock. Who's counting? Like, big deal. It's the same as the joint screw. I think it's fine. That's the way I build them. When I build jump cues, my pin is this long. It takes forever to do them. So what? You put it together once and you use it. This part, look, 3 seconds, pop it in your pocket, you're good. No big deal.
Yep.
I think people, if you're nitpicking for a $300 cue versus a $1,000 cue, and the selling point is that pin, maybe you should think a little bit more about your priorities.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you.
Of course, anytime, always available.
Something awesome happened down at Top Shots when I was there with Darcy. I was encouraging people to try out the cue, and I know a fine fellow named Jay Chinook, and I said, hey, try it out. And he's like, no, I don't jump. And I said, oh, you don't know how to? And he's like, no, I messed up my shoulder. I can't jump anymore. It's too painful. And, you know, he was in the background watching, and, you know, he couldn't help himself. He's like, I gotta try this. So he walked up, and the guy who has severe pain in his shoulder actually used this cue, and he did well with it, right? I liked seeing that for a guy who says that he doesn't jump anymore because of the pain. And he executed some jump shots with the Rhino. So as promised earlier, I am going to start at the bottom of this jump cue, and I'm going to work my way up. And this portion of the video is for Rhino Billiards in particular, and for you. But I want Rhino to be listening to this part because I like to break things down and be constructive in my criticism. I'm going to name the good things and the bad things that I see. A lot of this is personal preference, and if you're like me, you might agree with me and you might disagree with me, okay? But this is an important section of the video. So let's start at the bumper. So the bumper is hard. I don't know if you can hear that. I hate hard bumpers. I hate it. The purpose of a bumper is to be soft. Now, a lot of cue companies these days have these hard bumpers. Maybe that is a result of the fact that people are taking these bumpers off and they're fiddling with the weights. I don't know. When you have a playing cue, for example, my retro over here, even the retro has a little bit too hard of a bumper as far as I'm concerned. But you see, we drop it like that and we chalk it, okay? That's what we do with our playing cues. Now, with our jumpers, we don't necessarily do that. A lot of times we'll jump up here, or we'll chalk up here, okay? Some people do. Some people will do that. I don't know. This may be a me thing. I don't like hard because it feels cheap, okay? But I digress, okay? That's a decision for Rhino to make in the future. Can you add weight to this jump cue? No, you can't. Not this one. I can neither confirm nor deny that Rhino is experimenting with adding weight to their jump cues in the future. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay? Moving on up. The joint here on the bottom section of the cue. Now, let's talk pin first. Okay? You heard Darcy. I asked the question, what do you think about the pin? The reason I bring that up is simple. I have heard so many times in the past when people are talking about these new jump cues where they have this bottom section that you can take off, they say, well, is it quick release? Like it's an important thing. Here's why they ask that question. Because professionals, they play in tournaments and they're on the clock, right? And they don't want to waste their extension on something like a jump shot where they know they're going to end up jumping. So what they do is they have to get that off quick, put it in their pocket, and then they're already into their pre-shot routine and they're executing their shot, right? It doesn't take long to take this off, okay? Here, let's time it right now. 1, 2, 3, I'll say 4 seconds, okay? 4 seconds, get it off. Quick release, 2 seconds, you'll get it off, okay? You're saving yourself 2 seconds, okay? Is it a deal breaker for some people who think that way? It may be. It may be a deal breaker. So, you know, Rhino, you'll have to sit down at your boardroom table and have a debate on whether or not you want to try to capture those types of consumers that think that it's really important to have a quick release pin in this section of the cue. I don't know the answer to that. You know what I mean? I don't know how much the cost of this potentially would go up if you added a pin like that. If the cost goes up marginally, it might be a decision that you want to make. If it doesn't, and it adds an extra $100, I'd shy away from it. It's not worth it. This is not a deal breaker for me. I love this. I love this. And I love the construction of it. It feels good going in. It's not sloppy. It's tight. I like that. Okay. The pin striping on this cue. So I got worried right away when I saw that because over time, this joint here is going to loosen. It's going to wear in a bit, right? But it's important to understand that Rhino did this the right way. So what they did here is, if I close this, right now, the pin stripe on the bottom here is not lining up with the top part, but it is touching now. I can't turn it anymore. I have to physically turn it with force to get it to line up. That is the right way to do it, okay? Like I said, before I even got the cue, I was worried about that. But now, I mean, I can reef it and make it go past and it won't line up. But right now, I've reefed it a bit and it's lined up, okay? So, Rhino, good job. You didn't mess that part up, so phenomenal. Moving up the cue. Of course, this is composite. Makes no difference to me. It hits great, okay? The joint on the top is also a 3/8 by 8 mini, okay? When I put it in, well, we got about 1/4 of an inch showing, right? There's a little bit of slop there. It's almost all gone. We've only got a 1/16 of an inch showing, right? So it's not quite as tight as the retro, right? I talked extensively on joint tightness. I still believe that it should be the desire of Rhino Billiards to tighten that up. That is an opportunity in the market. If you have a tight joint like that, there's other companies that have really pushed that part, right? I think Rhino, if you can stay within your price range and offer a tight joint on all of your products, I think it is a huge, huge deal, and something that others will have to copy you, right? They'll have to follow suit. Moving on to the shaft. It is a beast. This is a beast. Something that they don't talk about in the specs is that it is a conical shaft. So I measured it with my tool and the whole way down, and it is conical, okay? Not a pro taper. I think that's important, right? This weapon, we want to pop, okay? And I think a conical taper lends itself more to the idea of having a pop. On a side note, I did a review on the Comet Breaker. I have that cue. I've had lots of time to think about how you could potentially improve it. And I really do believe that if in your next iteration of the Comet, if you went with a conical taper, it's completely up to you, but I believe a conical taper on a break cue, potentially lowering the length, maybe 30 inches affects the hit. Maybe a more standard 29 inches is more poppy for a break cue, right? That sharp, intense power, right? Well, I digress. I can neither confirm nor deny Rhino Billiards is working on their next iteration of a breaker. It's important for companies to keep going, to keep improving, and Rhino, that's what they do. That is what I have noticed that they do. So, like I said, I digress. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with in the future for your breaker. As for this jumper, this shaft is phenomenal. And the fact that it's a 13.9, when we're jacking up, right? Errors happen, okay? The fact that it's a 13.9 millimeter tip on here, that diameter at the end, you've got a bigger margin of error. So if you're slightly off when you finally do pull that trigger, because it's a bigger tip, unintended side spin will be less of a problem. I'm not saying that it won't be a problem, because that depends on you and your fundamentals. But the fact is, all these jump cue companies, they're going with that bigger tip because it's proven that it helps the player. So you did the right thing, Rhino Billiards, for that. The tip, bakelite. So it is a hard material on par with phenolic, we'll say that. It is a one piece, so with that picture that they have on their website, it goes inside of the carbon fiber shaft, right? Does the job. It does the job. One thing Darcy did say was that he would probably adjust how it was shaped a bit. He would add a little bit more. It was a little bit flatter than what he liked on his jumpers. He also said it felt dead to him, right? What he meant by dead is that he needed more power in his stroke to get over and accomplish the same things than what he needed with his propel, right? But the propel has a different system going on, right? The propel has a ferrule, a phenolic ferrule, and then it has a tip on top of that. So that tip will not be as hard as the bakelite. So, I mean, these cue companies, they're all experimenting, right? And they're all revising their designs, right? Like I said earlier, the hits of all these jump cues are going to be slightly different depending on how they've constructed it, right? And all the aspects that have gone into it. Rhinos decided to go with a one-piece bakelite ferrule tip combo. It does the job. It absolutely does the job, right? But like anything, like I said, you've got to zone it in, right? So he had never hit with this cue. So going from his jump cue to this one, well, he's going to feel the difference. Another thing that was vastly different for Darcy was that the weight of his jump cue compared to this is slightly heavier, right? You got to get used to these things. So all together, what they've done here, what Rhino's done, is they've come out with a jump cue that is solid, right? And very competitively priced, right? It's fallen in that price range. I think this is a phenomenal outing by Rhino. I can't get over the fact how they're improving, right? From the beginning to where they are now. Every time they come out with something new here, it's really hitting the mark now, especially starting with the retro, right? I love that cue. Quickly, I want to talk about usage, okay? Usage of your cues, usage of your weapons, right? And this is going to lend into my final thoughts. And I just want you to be able to answer this question yourself, okay? I'm going to lay it out on the line. 8 ball, okay? I've got 8 ball racked here. What's the cue that you're going to use the most? Of course, it's going to be your playing cue, okay? There it is. Then you're going to have a break cue. You're probably going to use that cue the second most, right? When you're playing a set to 9, alternating break, at a bare minimum, you're going to use that every second game, okay? That's the cue you use second most. The jump cue. Arguably, race to 9, race to 11, whatever, you're playing a set with a friend, you're playing in a tournament, you might use this cue a grand total of 0 times. That's what I'm saying. You may never pull this out of your bag to do a jump shot because the situation didn't arise, right? I'm not saying don't buy a jump cue. I'm just putting this out there, okay? I would argue that, I put a video out not too long ago of how you can play awesome safeties with your jump cue because the length of the cue is shorter. It shortens up your stroke and it makes that touch shot super easy when you play safe and you hook your opponent, right? I'll put the link up there. You guys can watch that video after this, but arguably in a set, you might not even use this. Now, I'm not making the argument, don't buy a jump cue. Of course, I'm not doing that. Buy a jump cue. You should have a jump cue in your bag. What I'm saying is, in my final thoughts, we're going to be talking about price to quality and price, the law of diminishing returns, okay? It lends itself. We all have to make a decision. Do we want to spend, I don't even know how much that new Mez is. I think it's $900. $900 for a jump cue. And for me, and this is my opinion, I don't know how you can spend that money on a jump cue. I just don't, right? Even their breaker. This is a Rhino Billiards review, so I'm not going to go there, but we have to make the decision, right? Quality equipment is coming out at very competitive prices right now. It is a great time to be a pool player so that we can reap the rewards of high competition, improvements in technology. I gotta stop. All right, so you've made it to the end. Thank you for that. My final thoughts. I like to talk price to quality, the laws of diminishing returns, okay? If we pay the money, we want to make sure we get the same amount of quality, right? That has to be going up, okay? There are a number of competitors in this price range. I like to say that this price range is from $250 to $400. Let's say that that is this price range. And there's a number of competitors. I can think of a couple American competitors and one Chinese, and they're all good jump cues, okay? So the Rhino Billiards is a Vietnamese company. Phenomenal, okay? They all jump good. They all jump well. They all jump well, okay? Now, we're all different. So we all have different fundamentals. Some people are taller, some people are shorter. Some people like to do the sidearm jump stroke. Some people like to do the dart. Some like to do more of a classic. We're all different. Experiment, okay? I guarantee you that all the cues, right? Let's say those 4 that I'm thinking of right now, you'll be able to zone in on them, okay? If you have sound fundamentals, you'll be able to zone in, okay? Do these cues make a difference? Do they help you? Yeah. If you have a garbage jump cue, these are going to help because you've got the proper equipment. Rhino's done all good things here with their construction, okay? So, you know, if you're in the market and you want to make a decision, try to get as many in your hand as you can. This is so new, chances are you're not going to be able to get this in your hand. So hopefully this video helps you. I will never tell you to buy a specific cue. That's up to you. We're all different. I'm going to stick with that theme, okay? It's, as my friend Andrew would say, a pool cue is a personal item, and he's absolutely right. It's a personal item, okay? But again, tip of the hat to Rhino Billiards. They keep getting better, right? You know, when I first got the Comet Breaker and the Eclipse, it was like, the Eclipse, I'm not a too big fan of the design. The tip, you know, average. The Breaker, the grip, the color, the tip was no good. I said that in that video. It's too soft, right? And yet they keep coming out with newer and better, right? They're adding to their line. To this day, this retro cue, right? I changed out the tip because that's what I do. I change out tips. I shoot with the retro full time now. I put aside my other cue, right? I love it. I enjoy how this cue feels and how it hits, right? Right now I've got the Taum Soft Pro on there. I'm going to be switching that out too because I feel I can shape the ball, but it lacks a little bit of power on my long draw shots. So I might be going to something more on the medium range, the softer medium range. It's all an experiment. Speaking of experimentation, the reason I went to Darcy and I asked that question about potentially how would you retip it is because the Parkour jumper, it jumps great. It does. It's a phenomenal cue, but I'm all about experimentation. So I am actually going to get him to shave that down, make the Bakelite the ferrule, and I'm going to be putting a tip that he recommends on there just to experiment. I'll shoot a video on that to see if it improves anything. I have no idea if it's going to, I might make the cue worse. I don't know. It's all about experimentation and trying to get that info out there. So anyways, that's the full gambit. If you're in the market and you feel like this is something that is right for you, pull the trigger. You can't go wrong. Okay? It does the job. All right. In the meantime and in between time, I will catch you on the flip side. Peace.